Hello and welcome to the first live MMG daily broadcast. Regarding our elections from the SU this year, you're watching with me, Tom Grant, and Anja Samy. We have the latest stats from today's voting, and so far a third of those students who are our target have voted. The target is 18% of all students, so far a third of that have voted already.
Yeah, that's 4,000 students, so 20,000 votes so far have been cast and that's by 4,000 people, which is out of a student body of over 40,000. So still quite a long way to go. If you haven't voted yet, make sure you do. You can vote on the SU website /elections.
Yes, so those stats that Anja's just spoken about there reflect on last year. They're now at the same level of on the 5th day of voting last year, and we are currently only in our third. 73% of those who voted so far are home students, that's students who are from the UK, whilst only 3% of all international students at the university have currently cast their votes. At the moment, the head of the Society's leaderboard is the Manchester Labour students. The head of the Schools Board is the School of Arts, Languages and Cultures, and George Kenyon is topping the leaderboard when it comes to those votes in halls. We'll be back again tomorrow with those latest stats, but now we are going to move on to an interview. Now we're going to speak to Joel, who is from the Nancy Out campaign. Hi, Joel. You're all right there.
Hi.
So just as a start, Joel, just to start us off with people who are tuning in right now, what is the Nancy Out campaign? You know, what are the main focuses of this?
So our campaign is obviously it's pushing for Nancy to resign, but we're also pushing for other members of the student leadership. So April McCahan, Simon Mary West, Patrick Hackett and Luke Giorgio, so them to also step down. And we're pushing for more democratic changes in the way that university is run.
Okay, thank you. So why should people vote Nancy out?
Well, I'm sure most people watching will be aware of the fences incident where Nancy and the senior management fenced in university halls, but there's also been a whole array of problems from the management. You know, there's been racial profiling on campus. Nancy lied about it then on TV. There's been poor student mental health support, funding cuts for PhD students. You know, the list goes on and on of kind of poor management.
So you kind of reflected on it in an answer to a previous question. So why is it in this campaign that, despite the fact it's called Nancy Out, it actually removes the complete leadership team at the top of the university? And then, for example, people like April McMahon have only been in their job since 2019, and that's only not even 2 academic years yet. And whereas Nancy has had the job for 10 years. So with the name Nancy Out, people do need to understand that it comes with a lot more. Would you be able to reflect a bit more on that and why the rest of the leadership team should also leave?
So Nancy is one of the biggest offenders, and there's a reason that so many people know her name and recognise what Nancy Out is about. But it is, lots of the things they do is done as a team, as senior management. And even though April has only been in her post, for a couple of years, she had a similar thing in her previous university. They didn't like her management at all. There's all sorts of problems coming in, so it's not new, any of it.
Okay, thank you. So like I said there, Nancy Rothwell's now been Vice Chancellor of the university for 11 years this year, and was only Deputy Chancellor for 6 months before that. Why is it now that it's become the time that Nancy should go?
Well, lots of these problems have been going on for years, really, but I think the coronavirus pandemic has really sort of brought these to the forefront and made people aware of them.
Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, she is going to lose her job, which she has worked for. She's worked in academia all her life. She's climbed to the top to get to that position. Do you think that it is a bit unfair that we are going to strip these people of all of their jobs?
Well, I don't think so. If she had been in any other career, had she made this many mistakes, she would have been fired a long time before now. And also, obviously, this is her job, but she has been given a mansion by the university. She does have a 3-figure salary. This is not just a McDonald's worker. This is, one of the most highly paid people in the country.
Thank you. And you picked up on my next question actually there regarding her salary. There have been multiple comments throughout your campaign about the fact that she earns too much, or the fact that she doesn't earn enough. No, sorry, she earns too much for the way she's worked her job. Do you think that then this should change for the new person in the new job, despite the fact that they are doing the same position? I mean, we looked at some studies, some rank tables, and the University of Manchester is actually 37th on a league board of 42 when it comes to the salary of the person at the top. So do you think it should decrease even more?
Well, obviously, perhaps in relation to other universities, it's not as much, but this is still more than the Prime Minister of the UK earns, you know, and you think, how much more are these university vice chancellors doing that the Prime Minister's not doing? Why should they be earning so much more?
Thank you. And just my final question. One argument that has been raised in the removal of the leadership team, we could just get someone similar, someone who's got the same views, someone who has the same ideas, who may run the university the same way. Are we just going to revolt and protest until we get someone that everybody likes? And in another question, which is kind of related to this, what would then happen if the student body votes to get rid of Nancy Rothwell, but the trustees decide to go against that?
So in regards to your first question, part of our demands is elected positions on the Senate and for a more representative board of governors, so that we don't just get the same person coming in again and again, and that the students have say over how the university is run and who gets elected.
Okay, thank you. I thank you very much for your time there, Jordan. Thanks for answering my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Anja, you've got something with another interview from another student.
Yes, so I have talked to Lara Vaughan, who was actually a candidate last year for the Activities and Development role. Lara is heavily involved in student leadership. So here she is talking about her experiences in the uni that give her an insight into how things run.
When I was in first year, I was involved with JCR RA in Western Hall. So Western Hall is has been notoriously antisocial, as all the reviews said, because it's quite international, and there's a lot of reviews online, and nobody puts it as their first option because very few people want to live in the city. So when we were elected as JCR, we had a massive task to basically kind of make sure people we didn't live up to that stereotype. So we ended up winning JCR of the Year, or whatever the award was called, in 2019. And then I was involved with a lot of choirs, and so two main societies, Sing It and Barbershop Society. So I ended up being both the social media officers in both those societies last year. I was then also Hall's engagement student staff last year, from January onwards, and then I ran for election in March, and then didn't win. Then I ran for part-time officer election in May, and then now I'm chair of Sing It and social media for Barbershop Society. So yeah, I've had an interesting mix of roles.
Yeah, so Lara explaining sort of how her experience comes from quite a large range of jobs that she's had while being a student at the university. But yeah, so Lara has been chatting to me previously about her worries about societies. In Lara's words, she felt that maybe the current candidates haven't addressed societies in all of their manifestos, which is something that concerned her. A lot of focus she found was on events that related to maybe drinking that didn't represent students who don't drink. So here are her thoughts on also her worries that maybe during COVID, societies will have lost committee members, which might mean that they're going to struggle in the coming year. And that video doesn't work. So to paraphrase Lara, so Lara has been hoping that committees will be able to recruit their new members when they have a new intake of students, which means delaying the usual committee elections until September is something that she hopes the Activities and Development Officer will be doing. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, being the the head of a society myself, I understand that struggle completely. I mean, coronavirus has unfortunately changed our lives, and I think everyone's probably sick of that statement now. But even when it comes to university, it's completely changed it. And I know from a television perspective with our society, we can't get out there and film things, and it is a shame. And you want people to get involved, but sometimes you can't. And I think the sad thing is sometimes people have in their head like, I will do that next year, and then it comes to next year, and I think this year has really proven that maybe just do it now, because next year it might not happen next year. But I do agree with that. I think there needs to be a plan going forward that ensures that people know that societies are still there, and that they're not disappearing under the midst of COVID. Just because they're not operating like physically doesn't mean that they're actually someone's still controlling the Instagram page, someone's still replying to messages. And I think, that definitely needs to be brought forward.
Yeah, definitely. Lara's hopes are that societies that maybe only have 1 or 2 members rather than the necessary number to carry them over as a full committee, which includes like a treasurer and a president, among other roles. Her hopes are that maybe the existing members could, as she said, have the society dormant for a while and then bring it back once maybe we're allowed to have in-person events to create more interest in societies. So that was one of her main hopes that the Activities and Development Officer would focus on. Her other hopes are that perhaps the funding process with Fundit could be democratized slightly to take into account how much money societies already have, and maybe societies that are only asking for money smaller amounts or less often. So her hopes is that Activities and Development won't forget about societies and will do their best to ensure that they can operate even after a year of maybe never meeting in person. Lara has also chatted to me about her hopes overall for the exec, which include areas for accessibility.
I think with the exec, I'm hoping for liberation and access to be really improved. This year, the Liberation and Access Officer has not written a report, has not submitted anything to Senate. They've not attended Senate. I asked about it in Senate and they said, no, they just can't come. And like, okay, if they're a part-time officer, but we're paying £19,000 and we've essentially had to put liberation and access campaigns on hold. Disabled Student Society is doing literally an amazing job. They've made a massive, incredible insight into the problems facing disabled students with online education. I think that going forward, I really hope that we don't completely forget about online learning, and I hope that we can learn from online learning and say, actually, let's integrate that into physical learning so that people who are disabled, people who can't necessarily come in, can get the same learning experience but online. So not that it's compulsory online, but that they have the option, it has the option to be online. For years, students have been saying, can we have online learning? They go, no. And I'm hoping that from, in a year's time, we'll be able to have students where the people who can have learning online. I think that the exec really could learn from this rather than just simply saying, that's it now, no more online events, when actually they're kind of more inclusive, really. And I'm hoping that the exec the future exec don't just focus on getting Nancy Rothwell to resign and then think they've done everything. I hope that they can, genuinely consider student-run societies and student-led events. And I really understand the processes about handover and understand student leaders conference and all the learning experiences that students have to go through, rather than just kind of focusing entirely on political campaigns.
Some very wise words there from Lara. What are your thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, she raises some good issues again. I mean, I think it's a shame to see that some people have have gone through issues with some of the exec, and that, you know, if people feel there's been an absence where there shouldn't have been, that it's you know, it's sad to see people hold that opinion of them, I think. But it's also then amazing to see people like societies doing amazing work, because that's, at the end of the day, what we all want, you know, to be part of a society, a university that does like amazing work is, you know, was a great achievement, and it's always going to stay with you forever, I think.
Definitely. I know there's a bit of a saying that came for the course, stayed for the society, or stayed for the group. I think it does really enrich the student life, and it's something that students have missed out on over the last year, is the normal student experience, which includes going to society meetings and being in sports teams, going to events, running volunteering projects. All these things are what make the university a place that people feel a member of, like they have a community and a friendship group in. So I really hope, from the sounds of it, what Lara hopes as well is that activities and development do their best, whoever wins, to remember the student-run groups and events that do enrich student life.
Yeah, completely. So yeah, that is great. Thank you for joining us today, for joining me and Anja for that little update on the elections. We will be back tomorrow at the same time with all the latest stats and more argument and debate on who and what to vote for.
You've got one more day left to vote after today, so make sure your vote counts. That is in not only the exec officer roles for full-time and part-time, but also NUS reps and the Nancy Rothwell and senior leadership vote of no confidence referendum. Tomorrow we'll be joined by Jess, who is a part-time officer for disabled students, as well as a postgraduate student who'll be talking about involvement of postgraduates in university life, and also Riddhi Visu, who is a former exec member, will be arguing on the opposite side of the argument we had today, which is the no vote in the vote of no confidence campaign. So join us again, same time tomorrow.
Goodbye.